I hate to break it to you, but it may be time to fire your systems integrator. I'm going to talk about what I mean by that here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And for many of our clients, they embark on digital transformations with systems integrators that aren't good fits or don't have their best interests in mind. And oftentimes they wait too long until they make a change or until they realize that something needs to change. And another phenomena we often see with systems integrators is a lot of clients and customers don't realize that they have options. They don't have to be stuck with the systems integrator they've hired. And the minute there are risks or the challenges, it's important to nip those early on and make adjustments along the way. So what I want to talk about here today are some of the unhealthy dynamics we commonly see between organizations that are implementing digital transformation technology and the systems integrators that represent the software vendors. And so what I want to talk about today is how to manage that relationship and what to do if that relationship doesn't go well and you need to fire that systems integrator. Now, the challenge with systems integrators and their customers oftentimes begins early in the sales cycle. The contract is signed, we've agreed on a statement of work, we know what the technology is that we're going to be deploying, and the systems integrator will oftentimes nudge the client into implementation sooner than they should be starting. And what I mean by that is oftentimes contract is signed and the system integrator wants to bring their army of consultants on site immediately. And the reason they want to do this is because first of all, they'll start generating revenue right away through the services. Second of all, they make money typically off you going live on new software. So they have a twofold incentive to really rush you into implementation right away. And we often refer to this phenomena as cliff diving. It's you're at the edge of a cliff and the systems integrator and the vendor oftentimes is trying to push you into implementation prematurely before you should be really doing that. And the reason this phenomena and this dynamic is so dangerous is because the meter is running right away on day one, whether you're ready or not, whether you've made decisions or not, whether you have a clear vision and blueprint for what you want out of this project or not, you typically are going to start paying by the hour immediately. And the even more difficult part of it is that a lot of times you don't have transparency into what the system integrator is doing. There's a whole host of consultants there doing something, but a lot of times you have no visibility to what they're doing and you have no way to rationalize whether or not that sort of time and money should be being spent not only early in the project, but even later in the project when their presence is more justified. So that's the whole cliff diving phenomena, and that's where a lot of the problems begin, is that the system integrator takes advantage of the fact that you're ready to go, you're excited about this transformation, your team is excited about the opportunity for new technology, and they really capitalize on that by staffing your project aggressively and quickly. So one of the problems with the digital transformation industry in general is that software vendors tend to push and be biased toward certain system integrators. And generally, those are the system integrators or implementation partners that have the best chance of selling software. So it doesn't matter necessarily whether or not the system integrator is the right fit for you. The vendor will usually promote one certain system integrator that they insist is going to be the best fit for you, but it's based on criteria other than your own success, typically. So one of the things you have to think about and be aware of is that the system integrator that is recommended by the vendor may or may not be the best option, and it's certainly not the only option you have as an organization. And so one of the first recommendations I can make in this video is when you're looking at a certain technology and you're about to deploy a certain technology, make sure you look at your options. Even if the vendor suggests one certain SI or they insist that system integrator is the most important or the best one for your organization, it's important to really rationalize that or validate that by looking at other types of organizations out there that could help you. And this is especially true if you're being recommended one of the big consultancies, one of the big five, Deloittes or Accentures or Capgeminis of the world. Typically, those organizations are more likely to be more expensive, they're more likely to take more control of the project, and they're more likely to provide less transparency into what they're actually doing for the amount of time and money being spent on the project. And so it's always good, especially in those cases, but even in other cases too, to look at other options, maybe lower cost options, smaller, more boutique system integrator options. And in some cases, it may even be worth looking at options outside of the system integrator network. So looking at ways you could hire people in-house to do some of that work for you. Perhaps you hire them as employees. Perhaps you bring on contractors that specialize in whatever technology you're deploying. Those are other options as well. Now, the vendors and system integrators will typically tell you that you need them to do the implementation, but the reality is you can use whoever you want. You could do this all yourself if you want. You could hire independent solo contractors to do the work for you. You could hire a system integrator, or you could do some sort of hybrid. So really understand what your options are is one of the biggest things you can do to mitigate that risk. Now, one of the big challenges that I've alluded to so far in this video is that your interests are oftentimes in conflict with the system integrator interest and vice versa. And there's three ways the system integrator interests are typically in conflict with your own. The first is that system integrators are typically focused exclusively on selling and promoting and implementing a certain type of software. So I actually used to work at one of the big system integrators back in the 90s who was an SAP partner. And most of the work that we did at that organization was SAP related. And it didn't matter what sort of business process or function or industry we were working in, we would commonly push SAP to that client. Even if it didn't make any sense for them to be deploying SAP for a certain part of their business, our job was to expand the footprint of SAP in as much of that organization as possible. And we did that time and time again at organizations throughout the world. So that's the system integrator model, is to sell as much software as possible, but also ramp up their services to support that one solution as much as possible, regardless of whether or not it's the right fit for you. Now, the second way that system integrator interests are in conflict with yours potentially are in mitigating risk. So identifying and mitigating risk. If you think about it, a system integrator is your program manager oftentimes. They're not incentivized to identify all the shortcomings and problems that they may be creating. So it's a lot like the fox guarding the hen house. You don't necessarily need or want the person that's self-assessing themselves to tell you how they're doing. You want to be able to have the visibility and the knowledge to be able to objectively and agnostically assess how they're doing, not because you want to bash the system integrator or fault them for anything, but because you need to identify what the risks are so you can fix them. And the best way to do that is to ensure that you have some third-party and objective quality assurance and project governance in place. And then a third way that system integrator interests are in conflict with your own is that system integrators are incentivized to maximize their revenue. And the way they maximize their revenue is to charge you more time for their hours and for their time. So in recognizing that there's an inherent economic conflict between what the system integrator wants, which is to maximize revenue on your project, versus your interests, which are you want to implement well and you want to invest the right amount of time and money, but you don't want to overspend, we've got to figure out how to reconcile that and know when things are getting off track. So those three things I just mentioned are three common conflicts that we see between system integrator and customer. So all the things I've talked about so far suggest that there may be conflict with your system integrator. It may be a situation where it's repairable and something that you can manage and you can mitigate the risk of having your system integrator do what they do. But it may also be a situation where you need to fire your system integrator. But either way, it's important to recognize that there are alternatives to your system integrators. First of all, and the easiest answer to all of this is to first of all find the right and the best system integrator for you early on. That's the easy answer. That's the thing that will avoid the need to someday necessarily need to fire your system integrator. But if you haven't done that, or perhaps you're already far along into your transformation, you already have a system integrator in place and you're questioning whether or not it's the right fit, there's a number of things you can do, perhaps short of firing your system integrator, although that is one option. The first is to look for alternative SIs and to do it on your own. You don't necessarily need the vendor to tell you which system integrators you should or shouldn't be looking at. That's something you can do on your own, and it's a free market. You can hire whoever you want to help you with this implementation. So look for other systems integrators, especially if you're working with a larger, big system integrator. It can be very valuable, and we've seen a lot of our clients have a great deal of success with smaller system integrators that are big enough to scale for their organizations, but not so big that they're overspending on their services. Another option that I alluded to before is to hire and look for independent solo contractors out in the marketplace. We've worked with a lot of organizations in helping them identify contractors that they work with directly to help manage, In some cases, we'll help manage those contractors. In some cases, we bring the contractors on our own paper. But regardless of the way you might structure that sort of arrangement, just recognize that you don't necessarily need a big name system integrator to deploy new technology. You can go find people on the open market that you hire as employees or as contractors or some sort of combination of both. And then finally, another option is to look at ways that you can augment your own staff and your system integrator with an independent program management support and independent quality assurance. So organizations like our team at Third Stage is well equipped to provide program management support, quality assurance, and independent support to ensure that you're looking out for yourself and you're doing what's best for you, not necessarily what's best for the software vendor or the system integrator. So even if you do or don't use a system integrator, that independent program management quality assurance support can be a very powerful and effective risk mitigation mechanism that also ensures that you achieve the maximum ROI and business benefits from your transformation. So at the end of the day, you may or may not be ready to fire your system integrator, but certainly know that you've got that in your hip pocket. You can always fire a system integrator just because they tell you you need them, or the vendor tells you need them, or that they're the best option, they're the only option. There's always other options out there. But if you're not ready to fire your system integrator, I hope this has given you some good ideas on how to manage that relationship and how to ensure that you're in control of the project. You shouldn't be outsourcing this project entirely to a big system integrator. You should take control of the project, own it, and manage those resources however you see fit. So if you're looking for ways to manage this relationship better or to find the right system integrator for your organization, feel free to reach out. Our team has helped companies evaluate, select, implement, manage a number of different systems and system integrators out there. So I'd be happy to share notes with you on what we've seen work and what some of the challenges are that our clients have seen, and more importantly, what you could do to be more successful in your implementation. So I've included my contact information below. Feel free to reach out to me. My team and I would be happy to brainstorm ideas with you. I've also included some links below to resources that will be extremely helpful to your transformation, including how to select and manage the best system integrator for your organization. So I encourage you to download that guide. I've included a link to that below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day.